Hello everyone! We are joining you live from the Skansie House in downtown Gig Harbor, home of Harbor Wild Watch. And we have a really fun science lesson for you today all about ocean acidification. And before we can get started on that, Stina's gonna run through a little bit of what pH is.
Yeah, so I like to think of pH as the power of hydrogen. I don't actually know if there's a true...
We're going with power of hydrogen.
Yeah, there's not really a true definition of what pH is, but I like the idea of power of hydrogen because the hydrogen and where that is in a solution is going to tell you all about the acidity. So if you have water, you have this perfect neutral, and a neutral pH is at a value of 7. And so 7 is baseline. We have an even amount of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions perfectly assembled together in water.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
So important.
Yeah.
Balance, right?
Balance.
We're all striving for
Libra
balance.
is strong in the middle of the pH scale. Now, if we were to, say, alter that in any way, if we had more hydrogen ions, that will make our solution more acidic. And the kind of tricky thing about acidity is that that goes not actually down to 0, but
Just anything above 0.
Anything
Yeah.
above 0. So anything that's below 7 is going to be an acidic substance, and it's going to have more of these hydrogen ions in the mix. If we go above 7, our number increases. It can go all the way up to 14, and that's going to be our more basic solutions, and they're going to have a greater amount of the hydroxide ion. And so depending on the ratio of these hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions, that's going to determine the power of hydrogen, your pH of a solution. And we can do some pretty cool little science experiments to kind of change this pH. And so we have a little vial of just tap water here. Water, it's labeled. We're good scientists.
We're good. Always label in a science lab. Never not label.
Yes. And we're just going to take a little pipette full. This is from our aquarium kit. So
there is a pH indicator, which is a chemical that's going to change colors based on the ratio of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions.
Yeah, and so we have here a known volume, so 5 milliliters, and then we just add 5 drops of that. Nice, straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And there's actually some really cool science behind pH indicators, and you can technically make your own from red cabbage, which is kind of wild.
Well, this is awkward.
We're gonna see.
We don't have the little color indicator card. That tells me that this is gonna be, it's not gonna be perfectly neutral because tap water.
There's some stuff in there, yeah.
So, but generally, oh, it's even blue.
It's
nice.
even blue. Lovely.
But we're gonna change the pH of this water that we just tested by adding something. What are we going to add, Rachel?
We are going to add carbon dioxide.
Yes.
Carbon dioxide is a molecule that humans breathe out with every breath. We breathe in straight air, we take the oxygen out of it, and we convert it to carbon dioxide and breathe it out. So Stina's going to just blow
a paper straw, and we're going to add some carbon dioxide to our
water sample. And this is the awkward part where we see Stina's lung capacity. How long can she blow? Well, that's a lot of bubbles. So what we're trying to replicate here with this experiment is a little bit of climate change and this idea of ocean acidification, which is basically how we can explain that the oceans are changing in their pH. There is more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now, and it's being absorbed by the ocean, and that is changing the pH. So Stina's going to put this water sample that she's exhaled into.
Yep, so same amount of water, same 5 drops.
Same indicator.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can already see there's maybe a little difference happening here.
A good cap and a good shake.
What do you notice?
Totally different colors.
Yes, so by adding that carbon dioxide, we've increased the number of hydrogen ions in this water and that has made our pH decrease, which means we've become a more acidic solution. Which, wrapping your head around that,
it's a little tricky.
Once you get it, you got it, but you got to remember it. Like, keep getting it. So, thanks, chemistry.
Yes,
You're
love
the
it.
best.
And I love looking at the pH scale and trying to understand that molecules in a solution are trying to be neutral, and you can understand why having hydrochloric acid in your stomach is important, because that is going to rip apart the molecules of your food and allow your body to absorb the nutrients out of it. On the opposite side of the pH scale, down on the hydroxide side, is things like drain cleaner, which is going to rip apart the molecules of the guck inside your drain to hopefully clear that clog. So both of those are very, very strongly reactive acids and bases.
I like to also kind of relate it to like we've experienced burns in a way that you can kind of imagine that. So if you were to spill like bleach on your hands, you'll notice your hands get kind of slippery and slimy, and that's because
it's actually eating away your fingerprints.
The flesh of your skin is
dissolving,
getting dissolved and connected to that hydroxide ion, so it like sloughs off. Whereas acid, those hydrogen ions are going to bond to your skin, and so it's actually like burning
and break that apart too.
Versus sloughing of the base.
So
acid burns and basic burns.
So let's talk about why this matters in terms of ocean acidification. So we've got a shell here from a moon snail, which is just one of the. Oh, she's got her shell phone. Oh my goodness. So the shell is made of this molecule called calcium carbonate. It's very, very hard, and it's manufactured by animals. So limestone, marble, travertine are all geological types of rocks that were formed initially underwater by sea creatures.
Yeah, I'm adding another one. There's even some barnacle
Ooh,
shells
yes.
on our moon snails, so same kind of deal.
Yeah, so some species of crustaceans like the barnacles and crabs and shrimp have calcium in their skeletons. The shells are probably the most common one, but then there's a bunch of plankton that also is utilizing this protective hard calcium carbonate shell. And when these animals are making their shell, they need the raw materials from the water. So they need the bicarbonate that's in there and the calcium that's dissolved in there. But as we increase the CO2, we're now making a more acidic environment.
Yeah, and that CO2 can be increased from burning things like fossil fuels. It's one of the main components of human-caused carbon dioxide release. I would like to always make sure that the kids, when we do this experiment, and we just saw that the CO2 from our breath changes the water, like, I don't want you to think the solution is stop breathing. Like,
Please don't.
It's
Keep
really
breathing. Keep breathing.
that we have these passionate humans out in the world making positive changes, and so we need you to breathe. The carbon dioxide from your breath is not detrimental to our...
It's not. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
But yeah, when you have that atmospheric carbon dioxide mixing with the water, you then are creating a solution of carbonic acid. And that makes it tricky for our shell builders, because when that carbonic acid splits apart, you get the pesky hydrogen ion, which then is going to make it tricky for our shell builders to access, that not was me, I think, to access its shell building materials that it needs. And so there's an animal called the pteropod, or sea butterfly, and that's a tiny little, like, I like to think of it like the moon snail miniaturized, and that big slimy foot is instead modified into little wings, and so it makes it, it's like one of those ocean acidification, like, poster childs. There's a lot of interesting experiments done where we predict, what is the ocean pH going to be like in 50 years on our current trajectory, and it's pretty sad news for those pteropods there. They're not able to fully build that shell, and if you're thinking about an animal that I like to consider the potato chip of the sea, everybody likes to eat them, including our iconic salmon, and if the salmon, don't have enough food to eat, that means the orcas don't have enough food to eat. ocean acidification is going to just be one of those additional problems that some of our stormwater pollution and other issues that we have. So this is a good
All that to say that while ocean acidification is very concerning, there are steps that we can take to help reduce our carbon emissions. And I would love it if you would post in the comments maybe some of the things that you do in your family that helps reduce your carbon footprint a little bit. Maybe it's riding the bus and using communal transportation. Maybe it's
you have an electric car.
Oh, there you go.
That's a good one.
Walking is an excellent one. Maybe you're not going to eat very much meat. Meat production is a huge carbon producer as well. So just thinking through those options that you have to reduce our huge, big impacts. And if everybody does their part, we can hopefully have less of this issue here.
Totally. And I also, just thinking of the pH of the ocean, the ocean is a really cool system and it has a buffer, so it's able to absorb the carbon dioxide, and that pH doesn't change immediately. It's a really slow change because of the buffer system that is our ocean. And so while you might see the numbers and be like, well, the ocean is only, like, it's going from an 8 point whatever
8.3 to 8.2 maybe
to
8.1,
and 8.1 is
it's a tenfold
yeah,
increase.
Yeah, the pH scale changes by tenfold every number, and so that's a logarithmic scale. And so even though those numbers don't look very significant in the amount of change, it really does impact our animals. And the change that's happening is happening faster than our animals are able to adapt to it. And so that's kind of the issue here, is that we're causing a really
very steep
very
change
steep
time period.
Yeah, versus a slow change over time that animals can evolve to handle. So post in the comments, what are you doing to help out, especially with World Oceans Day coming up on June 8th.
We have a special fun program that we're going to be doing with the Foss Waterway Seaport on that day, so you can tune in, and we will be showing off a very interesting and amazing creature. I don't want to give too much away because I think it will be fun if it's more of a mystery.
It's going to be really cool for sure.
Yeah.
And then on June 5th, Saturday, you can participate in the Tacoma Shoreline Survey, a beach cleanup that also adds a twist of data to that collection. So even if you can't, like, say there's a huge tire on the beach, there's the Clean Swell app that you're able to mark that and kind of get an idea of what trash is on the beaches of the Tacoma shorelines, and then that will, kind of see how that changes as we do more cleanups and hopefully litter less. So you can get involved with that too.
Love it. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in with us today. If this is an experiment you want to try, the indicators, pH indicators, you can make your own or simply just buy a pH test kit that's used for aquariums. And it's very, very cool and interesting science, and there's lots of experiments that you can do. And encourage you to kind of wonder a little bit, like, I'm curious, like, what happens if Stina puts like 8 breaths in there, and
or even
how low can you go? Oh yeah.
Just a little test, like how significant is that change?
So get out and wonder.
Wonders.
Do some wondering and build those brain connections, and then do your part to help prevent ocean acidification from becoming a disaster for our oceans.
Learn to have fun.
Learn, have fun.